If you change your mind, take a chance. I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me. If you need me, let me know. Gonna be around. If you got no place to go when you're feeling down. If you're all alone, when the pretty birds have flown, honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me.
Welcome back to Occupy the Media. I'm Jared Jacang Mayer, and I'm joined by Scott Silber, founder of the group National Intervention, and ABBA fan Marcy Miranda, who is also our news producer. Okay, viewers out there, whether you're watching on TV or streaming us online at freespeech.org, we want you to join the conversation. Call us at 877-575-FSTV. We were just talking about more California students who were showered with pepper spray by campus police, and we'll be taking your calls about this topic throughout today's show. So give us a call or post a comment on our Facebook page. Only 7 months left until the 2012 election, but no horse race chatter here, because in this segment we're talking about the election issues that impact the 99%. And with us now is Kenneth Raposa, a reporter for Forbes magazine and a columnist at In These Times magazine. Welcome, Ken.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about Republican Paul Ryan's plan to fix the economy, which many analysts say will further widen the gap between the rich and the poor. Paul Ryan is the chair of the House Budget Committee. Ken, first off, can you just briefly tell us why has this proposed budget garnered so much attention? How is it different from the way our budget, the U.S.'s budget is structured right now?
I don't know how much attention is actually gathered. Actually, I know from economists from the market, it really hasn't received a lot of play. I remember last year when he came up with his first budget, pictures of him holding the House Republican budget in his hand were all over the place. And this time, from the market standpoint, they're really quiet about it. They're not really too concerned about it. I don't think they believe it stands a chance of passing the Senate. What's different about it? I don't really know. I didn't go through it with a fine comb, but it's the usual stuff. It's gutting social services and trying to make the government smaller. It's part of the Republican narrative. Been that way for a while. They'll continue with it.
And so, Ken Raposa, you cover the financial markets and other markets, business. When we look at this Paul Ryan plan, whether or not it will actually have a chance of actually getting accepted or not, set that aside. But when we've seen austerity measures in other countries, such as the UK being imposed, and actually the market's reacting very negatively toward that. What's your sense about how markets would react if this actually became law?
I think there would be a lot of negative reaction. The word austerity is a bad word. You hit it right on the head. What you said about Europe. You look at what happens with austerity measures in Europe. You see riots in the street. Has it worked on the policy side? It's unclear. So I think really it's too soon to tell. I think the market would react with it really saying, let's see what happens. I don't think there's any real fanfare for it at this point.
Okay, and recently, Robert Borosage, co-director of the Campaign for America's Future, spoke with Thom Hartmann about what a Republican-crafted austerity budget would mean for the rest of us. So let's take a look.
Americans really have to understand there's a real choice here, and we're debating a choice that's fundamental. Because you go down the Republican line, and you will literally cut Medicare. People will pay almost twice, 3 times as much as they do now on Medicare. You will end it as we know it as a program. Right. You will eliminate all of the things that we just assume government's going to do, like invest in education, like protect the environment, like control diseases and monitor diseases in the society. The infrastructure bill, they couldn't even pass the transport bill today. And if you go down the Ryan road, there won't be money for that rebuilding the Americas.
Okay, so let's move on to our next topic. Now it's time to talk about unmasking super PACs. Candidates and their shadowy outside money groups are expected to spend up to $3 billion on political ads, but apparently some of the big broadcasters that run these ads are trying to keep reporters from tracing who's behind that money. Ken Raposa, you've written a lot about this, and it's actually really interesting to get into what broadcasters are actually required to report as far as where they're getting their money from, and this new issue with the FCC. So just give us a primer on where we're at with what the FCC is opposing.
What the FCC wants is for TV stations, radio stations to make that what's called a political file public. It already is public, but what you would have to do is you would have to go to the radio station, go to the TV station, and look at who's behind the ads, who's behind the issue ads, or how much Mitt Romney is paying for his particular ad, for example. What the FCC is proposing is that you put those ads online so that people can see them on the internet instead of having to go to the station.
And so
that's all they're proposing.
And so right now it's a situation where there is this disclosure that's occurring, but the broadcasters at a lot of these local markets just have it at their station and they'll provide it to you. But if you're trying to cover this story on a national level and chase this money down, it's really difficult for reporters to travel to each one of these stations. FCC wants them to put it online, but what are broadcasters saying?
Broadcasters don't want to do it. They say it's time-consuming. They say it's a waste of money for them. But I think one of the biggest issues for them also is, and they've said this in their commentary to the FCC, is they're concerned about lawsuits because they believe that grassroots organizations like Media Access, like Free Press, could come out, which have lobbied the FCC to have these political ads, political files put online for all to see, that groups like that could say, hey, why is Fox News, for example, not being discriminatory against super PAC ads that are pro-life, for example? So the broadcasters can't discriminate against political ads, but they can discriminate against issue ads. So they can, for example, not run an ad for Move On. And so that opens up the opportunity for lawsuits. And so the broadcasters hint that they're against that.
But do you think broadcasters have a real case here? Is it actually a burden on them? Are they actually going to be facing lawsuits? Or is this just a case where they don't want to actually make it easier for people to find out where they're getting their money from?
I think that they have a little case. I think I was speaking with a lawyer today from Free Press, Corey Wright, and her take is that, they really don't have a case, and it's in the interest of the public to know if your radio station or your TV station is not running an ad or discriminating against a certain ad. Then it's in the public's interest to know why that is, because you're using public airwaves to essentially ban a super PAC, which could be from the right or it could be from the left.
Okay, and speaking of public airwaves, we're going to take some more calls from our viewers because it's time for another mic check. Okay, we have a caller on the line, Jessica from Colorado, who wants to talk about the pepper spray incident. Jessica, you're on Occupy the Media.
Hi. Well, something that's interesting is my question arose with the pepper spraying that was happening earlier, but as I've been watching, the same question is coming up, is that I've been deeply disturbed at how, corporations are part of our school systems, and now we're talking about the tax breaks and the tax and everything like that. And I was wondering what our analysts have to say about what to do for people who are involved with Occupy, but maybe not all the time about corporate power, and if there's anything that we can be involved with.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for your call, Susan. I'm going to throw this out to you, Scott Silber, because your group, National Intervention, tries to tackle this exact issue.
Yeah, so for us, the frame is that after the BP oil catastrophe and the architecture of the financial crisis and this nonstop violence you see against our students, for example, there are those who have become, they say that the Supreme Court issued after a 150-year doctrine that corporations are people and therefore their money is speech. And we assert that corporations aren't people, but the people who do their bidding are real human beings. And those people have become so addicted to their power in this system, which has only been augmented by $2.1 billion in political ad spending, for example, in 2008, before that Citizens United Supreme Court decision, to now a quadruple projection for $8 billion in this coming election. And they've become so addicted that they can't stop themselves in their manic pursuit of the next fix. So in any other relationship with an abusive, in a toxic, abusive, codependent relationship, we would all, put down a strong boundary, and we would say, enough is enough. Here's what needs to happen. You're a threat to yourself and others. We need to take care of you because of that. So here's an amendment, a 28th Amendment, right, that says corporations are not people. Money is certainly not speech. No goods or services or anything are speech in our political system. And all campaigns should protect an inalienable civic right to guarantee that that elections are public and our political spending is public. So if they can't do that, nationalintervention.org calls for an intervention on those who can't otherwise help themselves.
Okay, so among other things, a constitutional amendment is what you'd be looking for. But let's take another caller. Susan from Pennsylvania, who also wants to talk about the Santa Monica pepper spray incident. Susan, you're on Occupy the Media.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me say how proud I am of the young people today for having courage to stand up and be counted, number one. Number two, my husband at 16 quit school and served during the Second World War so that you could have free speech.
So when you saw this pepper spray incident that we're talking about, what reaction did you have?
I am so outraged. I am so angry. The police should have been from the California University, who did it the first time, should have immediately been not only penalized and fined, they should have lost their jobs, and the chancellor should have had to resign.
Okay, so Susan, it sounds like you would like to see people held accountable there at the University of, or the Santa Monica College. So we'll continue to follow this story. But I'm going to close out with Kenneth Raposa. We were talking about super PAC money and this disclosure. What's your final word about this issue?
April 27th, the FCC will make their decision. It's only 3 commissioners who are going to make the decision. 2 of them are Democrats appointed by Obama. 1 of them is a Republican appointed by Bush. It's 2-1. It's going to be passed.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming and explaining this issue to us. I wasn't aware that how difficult it is to actually follow this money.
Thank you.
All right. So Kenneth Raposa, he's a reporter for Forbes and a columnist for In These Times. We at Occupy the Media like to share your stories. Do you have a video you'd like to see on the program? Email it to us or post it on our Facebook page. This next video by Matthew Modine is called Somebody, and it offers some perspective on the country's state of affairs. Check it out.
I'd like to tell you a story about 4 people. Their names are everybody, anybody, somebody, and nobody. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did. Somebody got mad about this because it was everybody's job. Everybody was sure that somebody would do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. The best way to create hope is to create opportunity.
Hello, I'm Antoinette June with another Occupy update. Friday, April 13th is Mic Check Wall Street. On April 13th at 5 p.m., Occupy Seattle will gather at the Washington State Convention Center and disperse throughout the downtown area to place leaflets with messages relating to Wall Street, the banking crisis, income disparity, and other relevant financial issues into as many products as possible. For more information, please visit miccheckwallstreet.org.
We have, I think, the wrong theory of the presidency, still on the left, even 2.5 years in. 3 years in, we still think that the presidency is the site of all the power that we need. And so we have to either cheerlead for the president or criticize the president or be mad at the president or defend the president. LBJ did not lead the civil rights movement. Dr. King, Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Bayard Rustin, they and others led the civil rights movement. You have to have two sources of power, not just one. That's the big lesson from this past 3 years. Those of us who are kind of post-hope progressives, post-hope Democrats and independents, the big lesson takes two sources of power. You have to have a head of state that is willing to be moved, but you have to have a grassroots movement to do the moving.